it's pretty safe to say that pretty much every day, at least one influencer is getting cancelled for doing something extremely selfless and shitty. And us peasants are left wondering to ourselves, why on earth do they think that would be a good idea? Why do these people only think about themselves? Well, the simple answer is probably just because people like that don't think about the consequences of their actions. They live the kind of lives where those consequences don't even really matter all that much, because they can afford to maintain their popularity as their audiences are just that big. So, still, it got me thinking, if I were in their position of fame, would I behave in the same way? You see, it is my belief that empathy isn't something you either have or don't have. With the rare exception of individuals whose brains generally cannot process emotions properly, I believe that empathy is something that can be cultivated. Similarly, you can start losing that sense of empathy once you're elevated to a position of power if you don't actively try to maintain it. If you're a content creator, you may start to lose the connection that you once had with your audience. And without your audience's support, you wouldn't be here to begin with. So, what's the solution? Well, if you read the title of this video, you probably already know what I'm going to suggest. Obviously, I think that everyone should try volunteering at least once in your life regardless of who you are. But in this video, I'll focus specifically on content creators. In addition, I think that ideally, people who start volunteering should do so with only the desire to help and nothing else. But that is going to be very hard to do for those who genuinely don't see any reason why. That's why I think it's important to talk about this with everybody, not just those who are already inclined to help others. Because once you get over that initial hurdle of, well, why should I? The experience has the potential to change you for the better and transform you into someone who actually loves to help. I would also like to clarify that by volunteering, I do not mean sitting at home and doing a charity stream. I do not mean volunteerism because that's a whole different kind of piece that I'm not about to get into today. The kind of volunteering I'm talking about is something like leaving your camera behind and going down to your local shelters to walk dogs, join a local beach cleanup, or spending weekends assisting at elderly homes, etc. The hands-on kind of stuff. Something behind the scenes to take the spotlight off of yourself. Because while monetary donations are definitely super important in order for nonprofits to keep afloat, someone still has to scrub cages and stuff. You know, why not do both? As for how it can become a life-changing experience, let me share my own. So, for the past 3 years, I have been regularly involved in animal rescue, starting from when I joined charity drives, did dog rehabilitation at a shelter, moving on to rescuing and rehoming dogs from a puppy mill, and finally operating an independent cat rescue alongside my friends for the past 1.5 years. When working with rescued animals, you have to be very conscious of what they're afraid of and why. And as a result, you also have to be conscious of yourself and how you act. It's almost like being a therapist, but with the added difficulty of a verbal and body language barrier. In cases like these, you have to humble yourself a little, lower yourself down to their level, feel what they feel and try to understand it. In communicating with rescue animals, it's so important to establish a mutual sense of respect. And that also means familiarizing yourself with their language. But in exchange, you'll find that the animals will try to understand you as well. You might think of their intelligence as lesser than that of humans, but that doesn't mean that they are dumb. I believe that once you're able to peel away the initial wall they've put up and show that you're not here to fight, your true intentions and your kindness will reach them. This is where vulnerability comes into play. People often think of vulnerability as a bad thing, but I don't think it necessarily is. It is not weak to show weakness. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean putting yourself in an unsafe situation, whether emotionally or physically. However, I think there is value in opening the door. It ties in with all the things I mentioned before, like respect. It's all a mutual exchange, telling someone through actions that you can offer your vulnerability, trust, and respect so that they may offer it back. Now, what does this mean for a content creator? When many of these cancelled creators begin to approach their downfall, it really begins with losing sight of both themselves and their audience, which leads them to making more and more poor choices without regard for who it may affect. When you start seeing yourself as above your audience and your viewers as a number, you stop seeing them as people, making it easier to distance yourself from them, and in turn, your own capacity for empathy toward them will decrease. This will then lead to more poor choices and so on and so forth. Do you see what I'm getting at? Eventually, this is just a more convoluted way of explaining what hubris can do to a person, never mind whether or not they're a content creator. Now, that's where volunteering comes in. It doesn't matter what you choose to do. There is no shortage of important causes in your local community. You don't even have to make it a regular thing. Just try it out, even if only once or twice. Like figuring out a hobby, you could dabble in different activities and see which one you like best, as not every volunteer job is suitable for everyone. But it's important that you go out there and do it at some point in your life to reset. I don't think I would be the person I am today without volunteering being a part of my life. When I think on what I do, I think back to the time I was out on a hot summer day, collecting donations for a charity drive, shaking a can and asking strangers if they'd like to help. Most people will ignore you and walk away. You know how that feels? It feels like shit. But you know what? You do it anyways. Because the reward of simply knowing that you made even a small difference in the world is worth more than you can ever imagine. And I hope that you guys can experience that same level of joy too. Thank you for watching!